Anyway, let's look at this. So this is an update. Streaming platform Twitch apologized after Israelis found they couldn't register as users. So, yeah, what my suspicion was is, I think what ended up happening, which is that, like, they were being overly cautious and trying to stop, like, IP banning, like, everyone that is from Palestine or Israel because they use the same ISPs in creating new accounts so they can like upload footage of October 7th. I think that when people say copium overly cautious, I think they don't realize like they don't realize like you have to find an alternative reason for it. Okay, like not only do I assume that this is largely because like they have this is the post austerity Twitch where they don't have enough workers for anything really, but beyond that, I suspect that they probably took this initiative and then forgot to change it, which I think is a massive for the record. It's completely unacceptable. I would never be an advocate for this, but we should think about the alternative reasons as to why they might have done such a thing and entertain them, specifically because of how stupid it is to think of the alternative. Anyway, the popular video live streaming platform Twitch has been accused of anti-Semitism after Israeli users discovered they were unable to create new accounts. As revealed by Ron Barzik on his X profile, the company blocked users with Israeli internet addresses days without an official response, but eventually Twitch issued a lengthy apology on its X account, explaining its rationale and stating that the ban had been lifted. According to Twitch, the ban targeted the email verification process for creating an account. The company claimed it was part of an effort to prevent the uploading of violent content in response to the events of October 7 last year, when Hamas attacked a string of Israeli border communities, killing approximately 1,200 people, sparking the ongoing war. Twitch said the block was inadvertently left in place and was only lifted once the issue was brought to its attention, but many users took issue with the explanation, noting that the ban had appeared to be based on internet protocol addresses rather than email verification. It's unclear why the block persisted for months despite numerous complaints from Israeli users or why it was imposed in the first place. Critics also question why similar restrictions weren't placed on users from other conflict zones such as Ukraine. This is not the only time that Twitch has faced accusations of anti-Semitism. Earlier this week, another controversy emerged at TwitchCon from the platform's annual convention. A viral clip from one of the panel's well-known streamers ranking other streamers on a scale of ranking ranging from Arab to Love Sabra, with the latter representing the lowest ranking. The Sabra hummus brand in the United States, a joint venture between PepsiCo and Israeli-based Strauss Group. Given that Sabra is also a common term for Israeli-born Jews, it's not, or at least like, not, I didn't even know that. And the first person ranked at the bottom was a Jewish streamer, Ethan Klein, known as H3H3 on the platform. Many interpret the ranking as one from Arab to Jew. One panelist added, I'll just say it, there should be an even lower category called Zionist, which was met with applause from the audience. Klein himself responded in the short video on his YouTube channel, saying that the panelists have a history of making anti-Semitic comments under the guise of Israel or Zionism. He said he wasn't surprised by the incident. Klein also claimed that Twitch has a history of problematic behavior towards Jews, or at least a tolerance of anti-Semitic statements. He highlighted cases involving popular streamers Fresh and Fit, who posted anti-Semitic tweets, and Sneeko, another well-known streamer who praised Hamas. Both were temporarily suspended, but not permanently banned from the platform. So out of all of the criticisms that that Twitch has been taking in terms of like the anti-Semitism package, the onslaught of like anti-Semitism allegations, that paragraph right there is the only valid one. That is straight up. I mean, the IP block and not like restoring the IP ban or whatever the fuck is also unacceptable, obviously. And I do think that that's most likely oversight. But this, on the other hand, I do not agree with in any way, shape, or form. Just like I don't agree with any sort of like any sort of restriction from like making new accounts. Wasn't the IP ban also affecting Palestine? Yes, of course. So another notable case is the Hasanabi Turkish-American streamer who presents himself as a left-wing commentator on current events. Piker has hosted anti-American and anti-Israeli guests on his channel, including on one occasion a Houthi pirate who discussed the activities of the Yemeni Islamist rebel group, which is known for slogans such as "Death to America, and Curse the Jews." Piker has repeatedly spread false information and anti-Israel propaganda, sometimes veering into anti-Semitism. Despite this, Twitch has taken little action against him, suspending him for just 1 week for a specific comment. Wait, what? Who wrote this article? They brought forward the cracker ban? Dog, what is happening? Are they just like, come on, man. I rely on Haaretz. I use it on a daily basis. I love Gideon Levy. What the is this? You guys are supposed to be real journalists, man. Come on, dog. So far, the platform has not responded to growing complaints from users accusing it of failing. I like that there's I like that they went Piker has repeatedly spread false information and anti-Israel propaganda. Point to them. Can you point to the false information that I was spreading in anti-Israel propaganda? Now, this is, I think, worse than anything else because, like, this is a reputable paper. And I've said this before, as far as, like, Haaretz goes, like, obviously, there are fantastic writers on there, fantastic reporters on there, and then there's some not so fantastic reporters on there. That is every newspaper in general. It's interesting that they would, like, that this passes the smell test of, like, a decent report. I think it doesn't, right? Like, how is this like, it's not even framed as an op-ed. It's just straight up like, this is real news reporting. You know, that's neither here nor there. So tired. Like, why are we focusing on ripping apart a Twitch streamer? I mean, I think that ultimately it doesn't matter. You weren't contacted either. No, that's what's really crazy about it. That's like, I would have expected Haaretz to literally do a little bit more. I thought that they would have actually done, like, real reporting on it. Now, notice how they can't grab onto anything because I'm very careful and very deliberate with my language, even if I have my pop-off moments or whatever. There's just not really much you can point to. So it's always like second-degree associations, third-degree associations, who I've interviewed. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen this happen before. It's just when the situation becomes, like, unmanageable, when there's no real way to, like, defend Israel's actions in the West, like, you just have to try to silence some of the biggest critics, right? You interviewed an extremist who fought alongside the Kurds. Okay, don't tell the Turks that, but I have done that. I'm fed up with all the disingenuous allegations of anti-Semitism. Yeah. Did you see Stop Anti-Semitism tweet about you? No, man. Why are you? I don't give, dude. StopAntisemitism.org. They're delusional. It's like one crazy woman from Long Island, dog. It's not like a reputable institution. What are you talking about? They're more predisposed with yelling about Dua Lipa and Gigi Hadid than anything else. Okay, calm down. Yeah, it's no different than someone being like, did you see my tweet? Yeah, for context, that organization considers Bizan from Gaza, Greta Thunberg, Bassem Youssef, Jamal Bowman, Cory Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Gigi and Bella Hadid, Trevor Noah, Dua Lipa, Mehdi Hassan, AOC, anti-Semitic. They're insane, okay? The first two guys openly deny the Holocaust, and then they're like, this Hassan guy said the C word and mean things about Israel. I know. It just, like, doesn't really fit, does it? It doesn't really fit the bill, I don't think. It's disingenuous framing. I don't want to give it too much attention, but I suspect that this will be, like, an ongoing thing, an ongoing back and forth, non-freaking stop. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm used to it. This has been happening for 6 years now, you know? I'm getting the feeling that they've started an active campaign to smear you. I fear they won't stop until they deplatform you. Yes. There is not anything I can do aside from hoping that people will have the capacity in this barrage of ridiculous smears, that they have the capacity to be charitable. It is especially because I think especially because, like, most people understand where I'm coming from when it comes to the issue of Palestinian emancipation. Like, even if they're not primed with all the knowledge of, like, oh, is this Islamophobic? Or even if they themselves might be a little Islamophobic personally, like, they still, no matter what happens, like, they still have this understanding that, like, what Israel is doing is kind of fucked up. Like, that, I think that's what most people, like, most people's approach, especially in our demographic, like under the age of 35, but even older now, is like, yeah, we should probably dial back at the very least. Like, we should probably dial back what Israel's doing. And so a lot of this stuff will ring hollow because most people can see right from wrong. And I feel bad for other content creators on this platform. I feel bad for other content creators who are, like, also being targeted in the same way. No one should have to withstand this level of, like, cyber stalking and harassment. And since Gamergate, we haven't really figured out a coherent way, coherent and you know, successful way of dealing with this. Like, there isn't any legislation around it. You know what I mean? It's just, it's very odd. But at the end of the day, it's super simple, dude. I do not believe that Israel represents all Jews. I think that that is inherently anti-Semitic. As a matter of fact, many Nazis also say that. Okay? And I don't know. I just don't think that it's, like, I don't think it's appropriate to make this conflation. I think it is inherently dangerous to make this conflation. I think that I know that Israel is an apartheid state. I know that Israel is conducting a genocide. It's an apartheid state on a good day. It's conducting a genocide in Gaza right now over the course of the past 12 months. If you don't have an issue with that, I don't know what to tell you. If you do have an issue with that, if you are frustrated by that, then good. Okay? But I think it's genuinely unconscionable to 95% of Jews support Israel. You can't change facts. You're just wrong. That's not correct. That one statistic that people who want to defend the notion that like criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, and people who are anti-Semitic both use this. Okay, this is the hilarious part about it, is that people who despise Israel and are also anti-Semitic versus people who love Israel and are trying to defend Israel by claiming any sort of criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic say this exact same thing. Okay. It is insane. It is incorrect. There are two reasons for it. One, Zionism has a purposely and very deliberately vague, a vague definition. Okay, it's always changing. It's always fluid. That's number one. That's the main reason why most people are like, most Americans, if you ask them like, oh, do you think Israel should exist? Due to social conditioning and not knowing what Israel has been doing for the past 76 years, will go, yeah, of course. That makes sense. And then boom, they go, that's Zionism. And yeah, that number doesn't change across the board for any American or American Jews in general. That's the primary reason. Second, that statistic comes from one of the worst polls of all time. I remember doing a deeper dive about this. a while back. It's like literally a guy who asked like 10 people or something, and then they just ran with it forever and in perpetuity. It unironically does not fit the bill. It doesn't fit the current understanding of Israel's actions. And it is a dangerous thing to consistently wave around. Yeah, Jewish Currents did a deep dive on this, okay? Great article. Are 95% of Jews really Zionists? Polls of American Jewish opinion on Israel may not be asking the right questions, okay? Barry Weiss in Tablet, in her first piece of writing since her resignation from the New York Times opinion section, in which she complained that the left had become too hostile to American Jews, to support her point, she noted that 95% of Jews support the Jewish state. This statistic is commonly repeated in Jewish and mainstream media. This year, it's been cited in several opinion pieces and a peer-reviewed academic article. Last year, among various other appearances, it showed up in a Wall Street Journal book review, a New York Times letter to the editor, and a JTA op-ed. The statistic originates from an August 2019 article by Gallup senior scientist Frank Newport. In response to Donald Trump's controversial comments that American Jewish Democrats were being disloyal to Israel, Newport set out to examine Jews' political views. Drawing on the polling data from Gallup and other organizations, he contended that Jews generally have more favorable views of Israel than the broader American public. But nonetheless, once again, this is in 2019, but nonetheless concluded that Trump's actions in support of Israel to date have done little to shift Jews' largely democratic political allegiance. To support the former point, he included an estimate that 95% of Jews have favorable views of Israel. However, as Newport noted in the article, this estimate was not based on a representative survey of American Jews, which would be designed specifically to capture the views of a niche American community. Instead, it was aggregated from Gallup's nationally representative samples of all Americans over 5 years. In an email to Jewish Currents, Newport confirmed his methodology for reaching the 95% figure. He identified 128, it wasn't 5 people, it was 128 people who described their religion as Jewish in the broader studies and used that subsample for his calculation. He estimated that the margin of error for his calculation was between 7 and 10%, explaining, with small sample sizes, there is significant margin of error on either side of the point estimate, so the calculations are just that, estimates. Yet the statistic is rarely described in its context as Newport's back-of-the-envelope estimate, based on only 128 Jewish by religion respondents over 5 years. Instead, it is regularly repeated as a truism, cited as evidence that American Jews who are more ambivalent about Israel are an insignificantly small minority in the community. Soon after Newport published his piece, Forward Opinion editor Batya Ongar-Sargon admonished non-Jewish progressive leaders not to use the supposed 5% of anti-Zionist Jews as cover for movements that are unwelcoming to the 95% of Jews who have favorable views towards Israel. Tablet senior Yair Rosenberg encouraged people to get out of their Twitter bubbles. The Newport calculation is just one of several statistics that Jewish commentators frequently cite as evidence for pro-Israel consensus in the Jewish community. Yet, as this case shows, many journalists, pundits, and even academics often misunderstand polling methodologies, resulting in serious miscommunication of these results to the public. In Newport's figure, the size and composition of the sample is suspect, but the polls that specifically sample American Jews rather than Americans generally can have shortcomings due to the wording of the questions. Most surveys that ask American Jews about Israel-Palestine implicitly assume that a respondent's relationship to Israel is generally positive and relatively uncomplicated, while also operating within the rapidly fading framework of a conventional two-state solution. At the same time, questions usually do not directly measure other values that American Jews might hold, such as concern for democracy or Palestinian human rights. Limitations and biases for existing polling, combined with the miscommunication of the results in the press, make it easy for Jewish leaders to dismiss those who dissent from the establishment consensus on Israel. In the process, the public is deprived of a more accurate snapshot of trends in American Jewish perspectives on the Jewish state. One other factor to consider here is the obvious, insane level of social conditioning. Okay? One thing that I've talked to with a lot of incredibly intelligent Jewish anti-Zionist friends of mine, and I've done these conversations, I've had these conversations on the broadcast, as you guys know, is the notion that, especially for a lot of Reform Jews, which is a pretty large block of American Jews in general, is that Zionism has basically been substituted as a religion, as a secular religion for a lot of American Jews in their upbringing. Okay? There is a tremendous amount of social conditioning at play here. So with all of that and the vague generalizations of what it means to be a Zionist, okay, the polling data on this is not going to be entirely accurate of the reality, okay? For some, and I'll give you an example of this, for some, it simply means like, can Jews live there, okay? For many, as a matter of fact, it just means like, can Jews live there? Now, when you ask that question, of course everyone's going to say yes. I think yes. My answer is yes to that. Does that make me a Zionist? No, of course not. Do you understand? For others, it means Israel must maintain a demographic majority built around the ideology of religious and ethno supremacy. Okay? For the broadest majority and the actual real definition, that's what Zionism is. When people are angry about this kind of thing, they are angry towards that notion that is materializing in front of our eyes as Israel has maintained an apartheid state for 76 years and is currently conducting a genocide for the past 12 months and now is bombing the shit out of Lebanon on top of that. A 7-front war, as they say. So, like, of course, people are looking at that and going, no, that's what Zionism is. It's happening in front of our eyes. It's unfolding. Man-made horrors beyond comprehension. That's what they see because that's what it is. Do you understand? After all that, Lamau, my bad, this poll isn't reliable. Thanks, man. The only people on Twitter that have ever said unkind things about my wife or daughter are Zionists. I'm not saying the Nazis or the Bond dogs or whomever wouldn't do that. I'm just saying Zionists are the only ones who ever have. That's Izzy. So that's why I was laughing with Noah when he was on. I was like, who would the president of ADL, Greenblatt, who would he kill first? Would he kill me or you? Like if he lined us up and he had one bullet, like I think the ADL despises the presence of anti-Zionist Jews. Especially so prominently featured in the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli apartheid movement in this country, and I think it's very frustrating that these guys not only exist but have existed historically and are very vocal. Okay, and they're not a tiny, minuscule minority. No matter how hard people who want to defend Israel claim that they are. Not only are they on the right side of history, not only are their moral compasses correct on this issue, okay, but they also do not represent a tiny marginal constituency. It's ridiculous to say so. It is, I would say, anti-Semitic to say so, as a matter of fact. Do you know any good polls on this subject that we can look at instead? Maybe this one has it. Anyway, regarding the sample size of 128 respondents, Boxer explained it's not large enough sample that I would feel particularly comfortable reporting estimates from it. Boxer also pointed to the fact that those 128 Jews came from nationally representative sample of Americans, rather than of American Jews, specifically, which could misrepresent Jews in a million different ways. Most national surveys that ask for religious identification do not include Jews of no religion, those who consider themselves Jewish by culture or ethnicity, but do not consider Judaism their religious identity, a group which comprises approximately 22% of American Jews. according to a 2013 Pew survey of American Jews. Since JNRs consistently express significantly less attachment to Israel, their exclusion skews results. A subgroup of nationally representative sample poll will also be less accurate because Jews are distributed in the population differently than non-Jews. For example, American Jews are more likely to live in urban and coastal areas than the typical American, but in a nationally representative sample, you're not drawing disproportionately enough from those urban locations to get the proportion of Jews who live in those places, Boxer says. According to Boxer, this rural urban divide can have multiple effects on accuracy when taking a subgroup from a nationally representative sample. So this just basically picks apart why this poll is like very stupid, but I mean, this is from 2021. Poll finds a quarter of U.S. Jews think Israel is apartheid state. Also, 22% of respondents believe Israel is committing a genocide. 67% say denying Jewish state's right to exist is anti-Semitic. This is in 2021. If you were to ask the broader American public, they would probably have the exact same approach. If not even a smaller percentage of Americans at the time would probably consider Israel to be an apartheid state. Just so you understand. And remember, this is a product of tremendous amounts of social conditioning, okay? Schools and cultural institutions that are designed to create a sense of community are almost always singularly united on this one issue. And in spite of all of that, there are still so many prominent anti-Zionist Jews. As a conservative, I was told to hate you for your beliefs, and I have, but your rant just changed my understanding of Israel and the control of the Zionists. What do you mean control of the Zionists? America uses Israel as a weapon, okay? You need to understand that. We use Israel as a weapon. Israel might be a willing participant in this process, and certainly the Israeli government is, and certainly many parts of Israeli society are willingly on board. But make no mistake, we are the ones who give the weapons, and we are the ones who say, go off kings. Okay? That's it. That's the reality. We are the senior partner in this coalition, not them. They do not control America. We control Israel. So every single conversation that we have, you should remember that, okay?